Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to spend some time talking about Adobe Lightroom, and specifically I want to focus on presets. I see a lot of questions all the time around presets and what are they for, where can I get the best ones, what do I do with presets, all those kind of things. So in this video, let's try to cover some of those questions. If you don't know what a preset is, think of it as a filter like you see on Instagram all the time. You know, those curated feeds on Instagram where every photo basically looks like it was exposed and photographed the same way, even though it's clear they weren't. They were shot over different days, maybe different time periods, different locations, all those kind of things. People apply a filter to their images to make them all look consistent. Lightroom is no different. Lightroom just calls their version of filters presets. But presets are more than just a stylistic look to your images. And it should be said that presets aren't the end-all be-all. They can't fix everything, and not every preset is going to work the same on every different photograph. You're not going to apply, necessarily a landscape style preset to a portrait preset. I see a lot of beginning photographers, the first question they ask when they get Lightroom is, hey, what presets should I get? Well, that doesn't really help a beginning photographer because until you develop the basic skills of getting good composition, good exposure, solid lighting, presets really aren't going to help you. Presets aren't designed to just save bad images and just magically make them look amazing. Presets are kind of like icing you put on top of a cake. They're going to make that cake even look more delicious and more amazing. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We can also apply a stylistic preset to our images. Place where you might want to use that is when you're working in a studio, especially if you're doing something like product photography where you're shooting the same type of image over and over again, rather than having to go in and set a white balance or set a black point or something like that through 300 images. You can just tell a preset to be applied when the images are imported into your catalog, dramatically speeding up time. So with that, let's jump over the computer and take a look at some of the things we can do with presets. So the first thing we're going to do is we get into Lightroom, we're in our library modules. I'm going to go ahead and double click on an image to work on. This is just a nice simple portrait in the studio. So we're going to go ahead and switch over to the develop module. Over here on the left side of the screen, you'll notice we have our presets section. I've got a folder in here called My Presets, kind of an area where I've been testing around with. And then there's a number of pre-built presets that ship with Lightroom. But for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to go through and pretend we're going to create a sample basic studio preset. The reason why I might want to do this is in my studio, I know what my white balance is consistently shot at. I know generally how I want my portraits to look, kind of like the underlying base layer for my images. I know I'm going to bring the blacks down. I know I'm going to tweak the texture and clarity a little bit. And I don't want to have to do this on every portrait that I shoot in my studio. So creating a preset will allow me to just have that set so that when I come in and start working on my images, I'll already import them with this basic preset on there. So I have a nice blank canvas to work from. And then of course I can tweak those as I need to on the fly. So let's take a look at this image right now. I'm not going to touch the white balance in this particular preset. Even though when I'm in the studio, I generally know my white balance is around 5500 Kelvin. But for right now, I'm going to leave that alone. And the reason I don't want to mess with the white balance is when you're working with presets, sometimes having a white balance set can really throw things off. Because as somebody else will try to bring an image in and the white balance is correctly set and it looks great, and then you have a preset where you've got a pre-built white balance that might be 2,000 or 3,000 Kelvin the other way, it's really going to cause some crazy things to happen with that image, and not necessarily in a good way. You can always adjust the white balance after the fact. But in this particular case, one of the first things I'm going to do is bring up my shadow and highlights function because I want to see exactly where I'm clipping. I like to add some contrast to my images. I'm going to increase the blacks. I'm going to increase the texture just a little bit. In this case, this image can handle a little bit more contrast. So I'm going to clear the highlights and I'm just going to bring my clarity up just about to 10. And for fun, I'm going to bring the vibrance up to about 15, just to add a little bit more color and pop to this. And in this particular shot, I'm going to go ahead and crop it to an 8:10 ratio. So you'll see here, we get rid of some of that junk at the top and double click on that. And there we go. Okay, and that's a pretty good basic image for me. The other thing I'll do is I'll go down here and I'll enable lens corrections. That's for my Sigma 24-105 Art Series lens. So I like to have that set. And so this is kind of what my basic studio shot would look like, especially corporate headshots or professional headshots on a white background. Like I'm going to cookie cutter this kind of exposure. So I'm going to go ahead and create a preset now with those settings. So to do this, I just go over to the preset function hit the little plus arrow, and I'm going to choose Create Preset. And for preset name, I'm going to call this My Basic Studio Preset, and it automatically is going to create it into a group called User Presets. You could actually, click this and change it to whatever you want. You could create a new group. You notice User Presets is not here. That shows up the first time you create a preset. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and I'm going to make sure that I want all of the things that I adjusted to be checked. Maybe there's some things I don't want to do. You'll notice like right now white balance is not checked. I could include that even though I didn't make any adjustments. So I can turn all these on and say just make everything apply to this preset or just the things I've selected. Okay, so with this I've got my exposure, shadows, whites, all of this was kind of my basic exposures. I'm going to go ahead and leave all of these selected. So everything that has a check mark in there, it's either going to have the amount that I put in there. So you'll notice if you look to the right side, you'll see like the blacks were set to -59, the texture was +10, clarity was +10. Those are all going to be reflected every time I use this preset. But everything that's got a 0 or everything I didn't touch is going to stay the same. So you're going to see the exposure would always be 0, the contrast will be 0. And we've also got the lens corrections sections chosen. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create, and you'll notice a new folder has popped up, or a new group called User Presets, and underneath that is my Studio Preset. So let's just go down here and test that. Let's see how it works. So let's go back to where the image was imported. So you'll notice this is the flat image, the original image that came in, and it looks pretty good. So now we'll go up here and we're just going to hover over top of the My Basic Studio Preset, and you'll see right away the difference in the image. If I move off of that, it goes flat. If I go back, you can see the increased contrast on that image. And if I click it, it just goes ahead and applies that. We've applied this basic preset. So now let's play around with a little bit more sophistication that's been included with Lightroom Classic. Let's play with some adaptive presets. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and click the masking button. And you'll notice down here it's got people selected in person 1. If I go ahead and click that, it's going to now detect all of the features on the person, and it's going to say, do I want to work with entire person, facial, skin, whatever I want to do. In this case, let's just say I want to work on a preset that darkens eyebrows and darkens facial hair. And let's do this with 2 separate masks. And we'll go ahead and click Create Mask. And now you'll see up here we've got 2 masks, and you can tell this is highlighting the beard and this is highlighting the eyebrows. So for fun, let's darken those eyebrows just ever so slightly. So I'm going to turn off the show overlay so we can see a little bit better what happens. So we're going to take the exposure slider and we'll just bring those down just a little bit. Let's bring those down like the exposure down by like a 1/4 stop or close to it. That's close enough. And let's do the same to the beard. So we're going to turn off the overlay and let's darken that beard up just a little bit. So if we go back here, you can see there's the before, turn off the overlay. So there's the before, and then there's the after. So let's say we wanted to apply this over and over again. Well, we can do this, and it doesn't matter who the subject is. This is the cool thing with the adaptive presets and the masking and the AI technology built into Lightroom, and that it's going to be able to figure out where eyebrows are and where beards are on different subjects. So let's go ahead and create a new preset now. So we'll go back up here to our plus. We'll hit Create Preset, and let's call this Darken Beard and Eyebrows. And in this case, the only thing I'm going to select on this one is the masking over here, the mask 1 and the mask 2. I'm going to uncheck Basic, and I'm going to uncheck Lens Corrections, because I only want this particular preset to focus on that one area of the eyebrows and the beard. And we'll hit Create. Now what we'll do is we'll go over to the next image of this gentleman, and let's run down here real quick and we'll turn off all the settings. So we're back to an original image. So let's walk through this. What we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and apply my basic studio preset, and if I hover over it, you'll see it's increased the contrast. And if we look up here though and we click on the masks, you'll notice there are no masks at this point. But I keep thinking, well, I want this image to be consistent with the last one. If I'm showing a number of these images in a row, I want his eyebrows to be the same level of darkness and his beard the same level of darkness from image to image. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select the darkened beard and eyebrows. I'll hover over it. You'll see AI kick in, and then when I click on it, you'll notice, well, there it goes. It has already implemented those, and you'll notice the mask is different, the eyebrows are different. Even though the subject is moved, it still knew how to find the appropriate items. And if I click on these, I can hide them, and if I click again, It's a very subtle change, but you can see them get darker. So that's one way that presets can come in handy when you're working on this, because you don't want to have a series of images where you're, especially if you're comparing like a bunch of portraits, you know, maybe just all you've changed are poses or smiles or things like that. You don't want eyebrows going light, dark, 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 light. So you want to have a consistent look across all those images, and that's where a preset can really help you. Of course, you can always hit the button inside the develop module and just say sync settings, but I find that the presets give you a faster way to accomplish that. One thing I wanted to show you is sometimes people will create a preset and then they move to another version of Lightroom, or they want to share their basic studio preset with somebody. So how would I do that? How would I find those presets? It's actually quite simple inside of Lightroom. You can actually just go right over to the preset, right click on it, and you'll find in a Mac, you'll see Show in Finder. On a Windows PC, I believe it says Show in Explorer. I don't have one here to check with right now, but let's go ahead and do Show in Finder. And a window pops up, and you'll see there it is, my basic studio preset. And it's already highlighted, so you could literally just copy that and email that to a friend, or copy it and move it to another PC if you were running a copy of Lightroom somewhere else and you didn't have those synced up. And if you need to import presets, this is the same place. You could just put them right inside of here. It's quite a long path, so I usually tell people just go into Lightroom and do the Show in Finder from here, because it's much faster to try to find those. Let's talk about one more thing with presets, and that's importing a preset. There are all kinds of places on the internet where you can go and you can buy presets, or you can download free presets, and almost every photographer seems like they're selling a bunch of presets. So let's go through the process of how to import a preset into Lightroom. So swinging back over to Lightroom, we are going to work on this image right here. So this was a fall photo I shot a few years ago, and I want to experiment with a preset for this. So what we're going to do is we'll just go over to the little plus sign under presets. We'll click that and we'll choose import presets. And what I've done is I've already got a preset that I had created earlier called Autumn Color Explosion, and I've just got that out on my desktop out here. So you could be in your downloads folder or wherever. You just want to select that preset. It's usually going to be in an XMP file. Oftentimes if you download presets off the internet, they're going to be in a zip file, so you'll need to extract the files out of there. And then it doesn't matter where you extract them to, just extract them to where you can find them. Go to the import presets, highlight it, select import, and you'll see under user presets now, Autumn Color Explosion has shown up. So right away I can hover over it and I can see what it's going to do to this particular photograph. And you can see it's going to really boost the colors and saturations in this image quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and select it. And you'll see right away all of those preset settings have jumped in here, and you can kind of understand exactly how this preset worked. It's kind of an interesting trick. If you want to just go back to where you import, you can see what the basic settings are, and then you click on the preset and you see everything that changed. And that's kind of a way you can deconstruct a preset and kind of understand how they work. What I wanted to show you here though is how a preset doesn't necessarily work on every image. So let's grab another image. This is another autumn drone image I did a few years ago. And if I apply this preset to this particular image, watch what happens. So there you have it. The Autumn Color Explosion did explode the color, but it really exploded it in like the red tones. And I don't really think that's something I would want on this particular image, although if you were going for some kind of really crazy stylized red dawn image, here you go, nailed it. So that's one I wouldn't necessarily apply it to. So I can just undo that by going back to the last step in my history column. And for fun, let's just pick another random image to try that on. So I have another drone shot I did, wintertime image. And this has already got a number of filters and things applied to it. Like you'll notice the little dot under the masks. So you can see I've got a mask for the sky and a mask for the ground. But what happens if I put my Autumn Color Explosion on this thing? Well, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It really, intensified the colors in the sky. This is actually probably something you could work with and tweak a little bit. So it just kind of goes to show you, based on what your images look like, the presets are not always going to do the exact same thing. And that's what gets a lot of beginning photographers, because they think they can go and you can buy a preset, and this preset that this photographer used, and what they're showing you is they're showing all the images in the style they shot with, and using this preset to get all of their images with a cool, consistent look. And then you go and you apply that same preset to your photograph thinking, well, it's going to magically make my image look like that. That's not necessarily the case. That's why I really encourage beginning photographers to go out, try to understand and learn how the photographers are getting these images and getting these looks. Because many times you've got to shoot a basic image that will work right to make that preset work. So play around with it, kind of get used to what the sliders do in Lightroom and understand those a little bit more before you just try to make your life all about presets. So with that being said, if you found this video useful, it would be awesome if you would like this video, perhaps subscribe to the channel, and more importantly, I'd love to have you comment on this. If you have more questions about presets or how to use presets, or if there's another video topic that you would like, I would love to hear about that because I'm trying to make content that's going to be useful for you. So go out there, keep shooting, have fun, play with presets, learn Lightroom, and let's see what we can create together.